You completed your manuscript and wrote your book despite all of the distractions, kept your deadlines, called everyone you knew to buy a copy. As a new author, you did your Zen meditation, and the sales begin to pour in. Orders begin to trickle out by way of Amazon.com, and your booster club applauded you. Now we hope to provide you with another platform to promote your book. Welcome to Speaking with the Authors. This week we're talking to Ted Santos, host of Straight Talk and author of Here's Why You Can't Find Love. Okay, we're back to Speaking with the Authors, and today we're talking to a good friend of mine, Ted Santos. He runs a podcast, Straight Talk. But today we're talking about his book, Here's Why You Can't Find Love. So you got a lot of females out there who can't find love because they have barriers, and then you have a lot of males who can't get to them because of the barriers they create or what we create. So he says in his book, Here's Why You Can't Find Love. Santos outlines techniques and tools so we can better understand our self-sabotage behaviors. And also, Ted shares practical tools to uncover blind spots to prevent people from seeing their full potential, he says. Their readers will learn how to create and maintain healthy relationships in all aspects of their lives, including their romantic, personal, financial, and professional relationships. And we need this because a lot of people don't understand, like Ted explains in the book, that whatever behaviors you have at home translate into the business world and prevent you from profiting. So if you're a guy in your relationship with a woman and you guys are arguing all the time, you can't get along with you married or just living in, that translates into your job. You're not performing like you should. He says the business world is losing billions of dollars annually because we take some of the foolishness in the home outside. Guys getting fired. They're releasing them. They're not doing what they really could. So he brings something to the table that really does not exist, a connection between the home life and the work life. Tell us a little bit about it, Ted.
So for more than a decade, people have almost criticized me and said, why are you so obsessed with this divorce? I said, because we don't understand how much it's costing us. It's such a big problem in our country because it's connected to many other things. And when you do the research, you find that corporate America is losing $300 billion, not million, $300 billion a year in workplace productivity because of divorce and even relationships in general. So how many relationships fail? Most relationships fail. Over 50% of marriages end in divorce. And if you think about it, at any point, your employee population, a percentage is headed for divorce, another percentage is in the middle, and then you got another that just came out of it. They're all distraught. People who can afford it will take a year off or more in some cases so they can get their head together and recalibrate their lives after a divorce.
Like taking a sabbatical to fix your life, get in order, right?
Now imagine those who can't afford it. They go to work and you're paying these people. There's another study that shows productivity drops after a divorce 50 to 75%. And that's not counting the amount of time people have to take off to go to court and deal with finances and children and all that stuff. So corporations are paying people. If you can just look at that $300 billion loss in workplace productivity, and you talk about Reagan's trickle-down theory, that trickles down to a lot, to a company's bottom line, and you can't afford to keep all these people on payroll.
Understand, even in large corporations, like you say, and Reagan's trickle-down economy, but even to the small mom and pop, or when somebody is an entrepreneur,
right,
they know that when they go to work, if they've argued with their wife or the significant other, which spills over to the children, you can't operate like you should. That's why I like the fact that you came out with this book. And in the book, you show how since you were a child, you learned about the psychology of human beings, like males and females, how they interact, especially women. And this book is definitely written to where women can learn, because in my training, that a lot of females don't see the world or relationships the way men see relationships. Women see them more in a fanciful way. and men see them more in a practical way. So in this book and in the conversation you have, and I must mention, this book is a conversation between you and 5 other women.
Right.
Now, I've never seen a book actually designed like this before, but it's in a beautiful way, because a lot of books you can get tired of, you get bored of, but you won't get bored of this book. It starts a conversation up front, and it continues it to the ends. And you actually school these women. You said you guys were like at a party with a bunch of women, but then it narrowed down to 5.
Right.
And you have a couple of friends in there, but most you don't know.
Right.
And so you learn from when you were young. You learn about female nature.
Right.
You learn how to attract females. You learn what attracts and you learn what detracts. You say even including when you traveled the globe at a certain point, after you was in a relationship for about 5 years, right?
Right.
You decided to travel to countries like Belize, Panama, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, El Salvador, Honduras, and Mexico. And that a lot of people, no matter where you go, have the same things in common when it comes to family and interpersonal relationships.
Right.
But like I say, the summary of this story is an interview between you, 5 women: Susan, Tasha, Andrea, Kelly, and Leslie. And like I said, of the 5, Susan's the only one that you knew for many years. So tell us about how those women received you talking about women.
So that was like, it was really kind of like, when you read it, it was a macrocosm of a micro. So you see in the book, the women are like pushing back and no, and you're a man and you're all these, they're kicking and screaming. So,
you don't understand us.
Right, exactly. So I take them through a journey, and they're like, "Oh, you're just saying that because you're a man, and that doesn't make sense." All the stuff you hear in a relationship. So through the course of the night, you actually watch how this is really how relationships work. That women will often kick and scream, and it's so funny that women will say, "Well, I want a guy who can lead me." But the funny thing is, women will try and lead the guy, what I say, from the bottom. If you're having sex, the guy's on top. Supposedly, you're in a power position, except the woman ends up leading from the bottom. So many men allow themselves, and women even have that sort of mindset. Let the guy think he's leading. Let him be on top, but really, I'm leading. So in this conversation with the women, I clearly took a lead in this. And I let them push back. I listened to them, and we went back and forth. And I laid out some things that I know didn't make sense, but we talked it through, and so they could have a better understanding and a new perspective.
So, are you shocked when you talk to a lot of women your age that still don't know some things about men? Because I find a lot of times a lot of women that are older don't know as much as a 16-year-old girl in the same way. Their opinions about men are in that same vein. Are you shocked when you still find that today?
Yes and no. Yes, and the interesting part about it, that older woman will say, "Well, why are you dating a younger woman?" It's like she knows as much as you know. So I mean, wow. So you're not offering much. Well, she just has a tighter body. So, But then where I do understand why that happens is because parents set their daughters up for failure in relationships. Men only want one thing. And now she comes out the gates believing that's all you want. And that is how she prepares herself for a relationship. For a guy who only wants sex. You're smarter than men. You're more mature. So they come out of the gate looking down on men. So how are you going to be led by someone you're already looking down at? You've already presupposed you're less than me. And so I'm smarter than you, and anything you say, I'm going to know better. You don't know, or he doesn't know what he's talking about. He didn't do that. So how is a man going to ever lead if you're looking down? It's like you're looking down on him almost like a child, right? Most people don't let their children lead them because they're looking down. I'm in a superior position. So if you're looking down on men as though, or they're simple, they're not complicated, they think with their other head, all this stuff, you're demeaning men and claiming it's a man's world.
Get your copy of Ted Santos' book, Here's Why You Can't Find Love. Available today at Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, Walmart.com, and Riley & Baxter Publications. Links in the description. Okay, so we're back with Ted, and we're talking about his brand new book. Now, in the interview with the 5 women after the party, and you guys talk for several hours, and you school them about what a guy really needs, what you really need in a relationship. So in an interview with the ladies, you tell them of your needs as well as most anyone's relationship needs of acknowledgement. And by acknowledgement, you say you want to be acknowledged first as a human being. Tell us more about that. Does a guy to a woman tell you they want to be acknowledged as a human being? A lot of women feel that men just want sex, but they want to be acknowledged, right, Ted?
I think that's almost a crime against humanity. A lot of women treat men like they're not human beings. And, I've lived in several countries. And listen, I've been even to obscure places like Greenland and Iceland. I've been to places people have never heard of, Suriname. There is more of this attitude in the U.S. Than you'll see elsewhere. And in the U.S., women have almost this idea that a man is not a human. He doesn't have feelings. His only need is sex and food. And, you heard the way to a man's heart is food. Or you feed him and you have sex with him and supposedly you've scored. I don't know if I haven't read my book in a while. I've read it many times. But when I was in my 20s, I remember dating a woman and asking her, what did you learn about what you should do for a man? And she came up with crickets. And so I just repeatedly, systematically would ask women that same question. And it was like, wow. So we're telling men, girls are made of sugar and spice and open doors. And when you get older, you're supposed to know about sexual needs and buy flowers and be a provider, all these things. And when you ask women, well, what did you learn? And it's like nothing. It's like, okay, so there's only so upset you can be with women. And so, fathers have a role to play in this because they didn't prepare their daughters. They put them out there with presuppositions that actually hurt them in the long run.
And then men are left to take them from there to help bring them along.
And so you wonder why men cheat, because he's not getting fulfillment. He's in a relationship. He's married. She may know what to do with the children, but not necessarily, well, I'll cook for you. I'll be your cheerleader, rah, rah, rah. But, that's not what a man needs. Treat me like a human being. So acknowledge that I have intelligence. If you only acknowledge me as being simple and I only want sex, a couple of things happen. You look down on me, but also as a woman, as a human being, you're not prepared for anything that I desire beyond sex. All you prepared yourself was to be sexy and, have sex and maybe you know how to do oral sex. Hell, you may not even be good at sex, but that's all you're prepared for. Yeah. As a man, I'm left hanging. So to get my human needs fulfilled, a lot of guys end up looking for someone else, and women don't understand it. They just believe all men cheat, but they're not getting that he's not fulfilled. And as a woman, you're making all these demands on what you need for fulfillment, and men are just kind of disposable.
I understand, because even when I was doing Fox Television asked me to do a thing on Valentine's Day years ago.
Right.
They know I counsel couples. And so when they came out to film it, they wanted to film with a couple that I was counseling. And they asked me to prepare the show for Valentine's Day. And so every time I would talk and give them advice, like you're saying right there, they would say, no, just sound bites. Say that she needs the door open. You need to take her to a restaurant. You need to put flowers around the bed. They were not interested in what you're saying, Ted. So corporate America, like you said, relationships, and the media are interested in sound bites. So like you said, that girl is not prepared when she meets a guy for a relationship.
Right.
Which brings us to the second part.
Hey, wait, before you even go there, let me say this. So in a study, they found that couples in healthy relationships are more effective at work with communication skills and resolving conflict. they're much more. So that proves that the skills you have in your personal life are transferable. And I'm saying if you can develop skills at work and transfer them to home, you'll have a better home life, and you'll bring that better home life back to work, and it's self perpetuates itself.
So it's exactly opposite of where the country thinks that you should leave your house separate from your work. When your girl says, "You're making me late for work, I don't have time to argue with you." Actually, she's giving her best self outside in the work world, but nothing good in home. So you can't, you make yourself two different people, what you're saying when you do that. When you behave one way at home and another way completely different at the job. Like I said, which brings me to the next part, affection. A lot of these things you talk about, when I used to counsel and when I talk to guys today, they talk about the same stuff you talk about behind closed doors.
Right.
In public, there's a false belief that guys just need sex or, like you say, food. But a lot of guys talk exactly what you're saying. You said affection. When you say affection, you are not necessarily talking about sex. However, affection during sex is important, you say. By affection, you're talking about touch. Tell me more about that.
So it's, and I didn't limit it to touch. I even talked about the affection that a woman has in her voice. So there's touch, right? So there's that every man can appreciate the touch of his woman at intermittently, just at any given time. It doesn't have to be like you're just petting your dog all day, but it's just her touch. And women like that too. I don't know if women understand that that's something that men desire. A lot of guys may try to play that, I'm tough and
I'm tough, yeah.
I don't need that. But when your woman touches you, is that care, is that affection. You want that feminine touch from her. That's it. And you want to hear it in her voice. And you also want it in the way she listens to you.
Yeah, you say today that there's a lot of that's missing because they want women to be empowered, tough, strong. And you speak in a book that you really don't need that sort of tough thing. You actually say, I can't screw that. You can do nothing with it. Because when you do that, you have two guys in a relationship, not a guy and a girl. Go ahead.
Well, it's interesting. So there's what do you call it? The neurochemical oxytocin is responsible for people bonding. What people don't understand is testosterone actually blocks it. So if a woman is being tough with a guy, his testosterone is going to block and crush the flow of oxytocin, and he will not have a bond with you. You'll just be a piece of ass, and you won't understand that you're actually generating an environment where he's not even bonding because you're just two tough people in a relationship.
Wow.
And you think that you are winning with him. What a woman's going to secrete oxytocin a lot more and a lot faster than a guy. So in the end, she loses, but he's going to go somewhere else and get that.
Yeah, a lot of people, they don't understand. This is a new world where not only can you go to McDonald's because you can't get food at home, if you can't get your girl to help you with cleaning, you get that out with a maid service.
Right. And
sex, you can also get that out. So you don't want to farm out the best parts of your relationship outside of the house.
Outsourcing,
yeah. That's the business, outsourcing. So you say, finally, that piece is love. You say people have an image of love based on Hollywood books and the media.
Right.
So we don't have an actual concept of love. We find somebody like you refer to in this book that we can put our fantasies on them, that Hollywood fantasy, what we believe is love, and we end up falling short for what we have to receive.
Yeah, in the 1990s, there was a ton of weddings that took place. They were fairy tale weddings, and the women just needed a guy to stand in the place of a groom. And most of those marriages ended in divorce with, $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 of debt for the wedding, because the woman just wanted the fairy tale wedding. She wanted what was in the fairy tales, which was in the movies. And so I think, and men fall into this too. Men fall into this, imaginary, romantic, I think it's not just women, but I'd say women just have a bigger fantasy and rely more on it. Men can be more practical when you get down to it. But people just have no real idea of love. I'm willing to bet if you sat down and you did your job, you'd find people are looking for music to be playing and all these feelings, and they're trying to relive something they saw in a movie without actually understanding how to create this bond with another human being.
That's true. When people came to see me, just like when you talked to those 5 women in that book, a lot of the couples, not only did they have a fantasy, they thought that they missed out on something that they were supposed to receive in Hollywood. Hollywood is the most number of divorces, more than the average society. But a lot of the women came to me, they thought I was going to beat their guy up like they seen on Oprah Winfrey Show. But I was not into that. I was into bringing them together. And guys are humans, like you say here.
Right.
They're not a machine to, like an ATM,
right,
or just to hump you. And if they don't get what you talk about in this book, they'll go elsewhere to get it. And if not, they will be with a woman 20 years sideways, like just a ring alone, living in separate rooms. So tell us more about that book and how it can help the average woman today. So any woman that's watching us right now who knows nothing about your book, tell her how it's going to help her in a relationship. If she's thinking about getting in one, if she's in one and she knows she's right, I'm right, he's wrong. Tell her how it's going to help.
So let me give you the 2 audiences. You have more and more men growing up without a father, and they have no idea what to expect from a woman. And you look at society, just look at what you said about the TV show that wanted you to give sound bites on what men are supposed to do. So the book really lays out a blueprint on what men can expect from women. As far as women, I'm politically incorrect already. Most women are clueless about what men want. They really believe that men just want sex. They really believe their uterus is the prize, and they don't have to make any effort because she's the prize. My publisher said this is everything every woman should know about a man, except had no clue about.
Wow.
And my publisher is a woman. So that, she wanted to publish this because she said, wow, these are things my father taught me. And she said, as a woman, I know most women don't know this. So any woman who wants to have not a good relationship, a great relationship, I actually walk you through, here's the things that a man wants, here's the things that you should provide as a woman. And really, I'm talking about human beings. So you can take the gender away. These are things that human beings want and you have a right to expect, and I use a lot of business analogies. And this is why it's a great corporate handbook, because it's talking about conflict resolution, effective communication, client relationships, right? And if you talked about how a spouse will give the best to work, well, what if you dealt with your spouse as though they were a client? Would you treat them the same? Would you be able to retain your client if you treated them the same way you treat them?
No, they will walk away.
Exactly. So I use some great illustrations to lay out, this is what a structure would look like if your relationship, if you dealt with your client with the same kind of respect and regard and wanting constant interaction with them. This is how you would do it, So part of my concern as a society is, if you watch, business is working hard to make people more machine-like. And we're working hard to make machines more human-like. So we're taking humanity out of humanity, and I want this book to bring humanity back in both personal and business lives. And so I think women are just missing the mark of the humanness that men have, and the book is giving women some really clear understandings of men, how they really see the world, how they see women, and what they desire. And women who ignore this will find themselves, as some people say, the cat lady, 14 cats. And
the cat lady. Yeah, that's why I really appreciate this book. I would suggest anybody get this book because there are a lot of books out there on the market about how you can do a relationship, how you need to change, what you need to do for her. But the way Ted lays it out, you start from the beginning, at an interview where he's talking to the 5 women, and you follow that through to the last page. And he makes it clear for them because they're thinking more in a fanciful way, like I said, or the way they were taught. He's telling them in a practical sense. And men do talk in a more practical sense, but he's making it where they understand it. He's turning around where they have to question themselves. Now, even one part of the book, as compared to what you just talked about, you say when you ask any man or me that questions, there is no we, okay? Because a lot of women, when you talk to them, like you talked to the 5, they thought you were just talking about yourself. And so a lot of women change the conversation back to we. What about us? And you say that I'm Ted Santos, and I'm a unique individual with unique needs. Likely you do not know what those needs are until I tell you what they are. When I say what I want, I don't care what you want. You're talking about me. I just need you to hear and acknowledge what I say. So you got a lot of guys, just like when you were talking to them there, the conversation turns from what about you to what about us. On the women's side, that doesn't happen. When she's talking about her, that means us. So tell me a little bit more about that. What is the thing when women change a conversation that concerns something of your needs to us or we?
So a lot of guys say women deflect. So if a man says, hey, this is what I need from you, this is what I need you to stop. And a woman will go to, well, you did this, and what about when we did this? So, and this is part of the reason I created a podcast, is because women figured out strategically how to shut men down. As soon as you start talking about your needs, she starts talking about, well, what about us? And what about you did this on January 12th, 1964?
Wow. Yeah.
And the guy is now in defense mode. And so part of this, as I said, it's also giving men tools on how to stay on point and on topic without beating the woman over the head with a club. There is some element of cavemanish in Tarzan, but it's in a masculine way, standing your ground. Hey, we're talking about me, we're talking about my needs, and we're talking about a gap in our relationship, and I need you to fill that.
That's why this book, even though it's written, it will help a lot of women, it will help a lot of men because they don't have the tools
right
when they're talking to women, and you give them what they need. So next time when they are in a conversation or an argument, they know where it's going. One thing I learned about counseling couples, and I didn't get good until I understood that a woman will be 20 steps ahead of a man in a conversation. So when you're talking to her in the moment, she's already 20 steps ahead of you, already blocked you. So everything is already a response. So even when I counsel, when I learned that, I was already 20 steps ahead of her. So we ended a lot of stuff real quickly. So when you talk to a woman, it's not really in the now. She's bringing in the past. She's bringing in your weaknesses. And so guys, they're concentrating on the moment, and they get shut down quick, like you say.
Right.
So yeah, that book will be good for them because when a guy's talking to a female, they may be in an anger state. And when he's in an anger state, the caveman part of his brain turns on, the intelligent part of his brain turns off.
Right.
So you speak about trust. Because the main guy's currency in life and relationship with each other or women is trust. So you got to have trust. So you say that it is a paradigm we have been given. You say we wait for a person to provide themselves over time. We feel like they are deserving of our trust because they keep their word. We trust them. But what you suggest is that we kill trust from the beginning. Now, that's amazing. Nobody would ever think the main thing you need to take out of a relationship is trust. You say that opposite, hand in hand with trust is mistrust. Who would ever thought that trust is not needed in a relationship? So what's needed instead of trust in a relationship, Ted?
Your word.
Just your word. So,
well, no, but
it says Go ahead.
You've got to be a person of integrity. Like, so my word is my bond. Like, you are your word. So if you live as though I can just say anything and it's all airy fairy, then the person will have to depend on trust. But go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was saying I appreciate this because as soon as I read it, where your word is your bond, it takes me back to my mother. She taught me that. My grandfather taught me that. And they told me that a lot. So as soon as I read it, I was like, wow, this must be something from our generation. But my mother would always teach me. She said, when I was youngest, 6 or 7, she said, sweetheart, your word is your bond. You tell somebody you're going to do something, they should be able to take that to the bank.
Exactly.
Get cash for that. And I believe that woman every day. She mirrored that. She just didn't say that. So you could trust her. Now, my father, on the other hand, it was a little bit different. But whatever she said she was going to do, she did that straight to the grave. She did that. You could rely on that. So you're right. When you can trust somebody's word, other than just your friend tell you, I'll be there Friday. The dude never shows up. What happened? So you're saying that relationships need a word as a bond instead of just a silly promise that could be broken any time. She could separate from you, run back home to her mother. So the word, Ted, is needed more than trust. Elaborate a little bit more on that one.
Okay. So see, even if you listen to what you said when you have someone's word, you can trust them. No, I'm saying you kill. Trust is dead.
Trust is dead.
Because if once you understand that trust never travels alone, trust has a faithful companion waiting just around the corner to step in and run the show. And that faithful companion is mistrust. So you're in this relationship and there's just a little crack and mistrust comes in and says, hey, trust, you just step aside. I'm running things. And now these people they've got mistrust between them as opposed to trust. If you kill trust, mistrust dies with it. So now we get back to your original question. What are you left with? Your word. So if I say I will do this, that just means I will do it because I said so. And that's it. If I said I will stop doing something or I won't do something, that is my word. And see, that's another thing that I think a lot of men don't stand strong in. So if you tell a woman, if you continue this, these are the consequences, and you now have to deliver those consequences. If she pushes you and crosses that boundary, and then you put it out, well, next time, and then she's going to do it again, and next time you're way out of bounds and your relationship is out of control. But if you say, this is, the buck stops here. I'm a man, I'm putting some structure and discipline, and my word is my bond. If you violate this boundary, these are the consequences, right? That's one way to look at your word. I say I'm going to meet you tomorrow at 5 o'clock. I'll be there. And in my mind, 4:55 is kind of late. I need to be there and account for any traffic. Things can happen. So you need to be ready to be there a little early. So if you say you will do something, that's what your relationship is built on, your word. If you depend on trust, that's the other part is trust is something outside of you. So now you're depending on something outside of you to create a bond between the two of you, where really the relationship is between the two of you. It's nothing to do with trust, mistrust, what's happening with the weather, what your parents did, all irrelevant. Your relationship is between what two people say to one another.
And a lot of relationships, it's true because they die based on that mistrust factor, because
Exactly.
they think they're tight if they're based on trust, like you said they shouldn't. Somebody is attracted to somebody else and they cheat around, the whole relationship falls apart because they now mistrust that person forever. Because the word was not the bond, trust was the fact that the relationship leaned on.
Trust me, I won't do this. Trust me, I won't cheat on you. Just trust me. No.
And it's funny because as men, we deal with each other on our word. And we deal with women based upon trust. There's not a man that would deal with his best buddy that if he gave you his word and he didn't keep it constantly, that you would still call that guy a friend. Because we deal on what you do, not based upon really what you say. And you're right. We let women off the hook when it comes to, I'll be there Friday this time. She doesn't show up. You say, maybe she did this or maybe she did that. On the job, that maybe wouldn't even be tolerated. Right? Okay, so moving more towards, in the book, you speak on how a healthy relationship equally encompasses a healthy sexual life. You say sex is a big part of the body's normal functions. It is as normal as eating, sleeping, and going to the bathroom. You said when we abstain, it can create problems in our bodies because it is so important. It can also support positive effects for the brain and body. Now, so this book really talks about the total body package as well as the encompassing between home and work life. So you're trying to really heal not just relationship, but somebody's entire life. So tell us how a bad sex life is not an indication of a bad relationship, but how it affects your productivity at work.
So there's statistics out there that say couples that have sex 4 times a week or more earns higher incomes than couples who work less.
Wow.
So there's empirical research. There's some informal research when you look at guys like these titans like Henry Ford and John D. Rockefeller Sr. and even Alexander the Great. You know, these men had enormous sex drive. So they've seen informally there's a correlation between a large sex drive and huge accomplishment from men. So if a woman has a guy who has huge ambitions and a great capacity to fulfill them, and she's denying him sex, she's creating frustration. She's robbing the bank, really. She's sucking the life out of him. Maybe he's got to look for it elsewhere, but he's not getting that full expression, you know. And sex really helps to recharge your brain and reset the body and make you more comfortable. I've heard doctors say sex is the greatest exercise in the world. And in the book, some of the ladies were like, "Oh, you're just saying that because you're a man. You know, you just want women to have more sex with you." But women want sex too. So why would you even deny yourself? Is that going to be the carrot on a stick, or is a way to control the guys? So sex is mutual.
Well, that's what I found out. Like I said, counseling 30 years, a lot of guys don't know that women enjoy sex just as much as men, but they are trained since they are children, little girls, that they're not supposed to say they do. They're supposed to pretend that they don't. Exactly. They allow you to chase them. As a matter of fact, when we were young, there was that sort of thing called nymphomania. So if a woman did sex outside of the ordinary, boring 1820, she was a nymphomaniac. But behind closed doors, if there was a guy having sex, a guy cheating around, a guy going to a club or going to a brothel, it was a woman on the other side. So yeah, women love sex as much as men. I don't know why this is hard for society to understand, but they do. Otherwise, they wouldn't have vibrators and dildos and anything else.
Exactly. Well, you know, they say the man's the duration of his climax is about 6 seconds. The woman's is about 23 seconds. So who's getting the most out of this? And she can do it multiple times over.
Multiple times, yeah.
Come on now, come on. Yeah. Like, this is simple mathematics.
Well, one thing I could notice from your book, and the fact that you wanted to learn since you were young, it says, he who learns the most earns the most. And wherever you started at, your mind grew. You outgrew from wherever you grew up at. You're not only wanted to leave in your mind, you actually left one day physically.
Right.
And so you were able to learn about those women in that way. So it can never put you in a box. But some of the women's relationships, they are living in a box that was designed for them. And you speak about that as far as radio stations. You say that they are listening to the radio station in their head. So we're trained as children. This is who you are. This is where we live. This is what you should do. And that radio station, you said, is destroying people's lives down the road. So tell us about that.
Yes. So when I say that you have nothing to do with what you think, say, and do, people have a difficult time with that. And so I say, well, you know, just think of it this way. In your mind, there's this radio station, like as soon as you wake up, that starts to play. It says, "Oh my God, it's Monday. Monday sucks," and you didn't make that up. Or thank God it's Friday, right? Men who dress this certain way are like, you can't turn the radio station off, but it's driving what you think about yourself, about life, about people, about the opposite sex, and those conversations cause you to take actions that may work against you, and you can't understand why you do it except the radio station is playing. So it's like when two people, a man and woman, go on a date the first time, they sit at the table. Most people say, well, there are two conversations. There's a man and woman talking. I say there's four, and you don't know about the other two. So the two are, you see the words coming out of their mouth. Right. But in your head, you're having a whole conversation about this person. I don't like the way he wears his his shirt. I don't like his haircut. I don't like her purse, or look at her breast. I can't wait to, you're having all these conversations.
That's the four. Yeah.
And so, what then also, when the person says something, you have an interpretation of what they said. Oh, this person's lying. There's no way he could have done all that. He's just trying to impress me, right? So now you're diminishing a person, and they don't know they're being diminished. So there's some level of invalidation. And because your radio station told you to think that, you have to be right about it. So it's like, if the person says, "Oh no, I really did it. Let me show you." I left the country for a number of years and came back. And I remember some people say, "No, you didn't." So I showed them my passport. And because their radio station is saying this guy is lying, they told me that I paid someone to stamp all those the passport.
International travel. Like I said, your mind was open when you were young. That's why you learned. And then after you learned, you could never stay on that block. Ultimately, you're going to leave. I wish we had more time to talk about it today, Ted. But the book is called Here's Why You Can't Find Love. Now, a lot of people may be in a relationship where you are getting sex, but you're not getting the love that you require.
Right.
So, Ted, we want to have you back. This is the day that your book comes out, right?
Absolutely.
Do you have a copy of your book with you?
Of course.
Hold that up where everybody can see it.
There you go. I Can't Find Love. All the tools that you need to understand how to create a great relationship. Before you get there, you have to understand how you've been sabotaging your life at home and at work. So yes.
So a lot of this is, like you said, at home and at work. So they have to clean up their life. Your life will not work for you unless you clean it up at home and at work. A lot of us try to slide by to the grave without fixing the stuff we need to fix. And that's why I think this book really helps you. I would suggest that people go out to get it today. Like I said, it comes out today. You can get it on Amazon.com, right?
Absolutely. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, yes. And I have a link where they can buy it direct if you want to provide the link.
There'll be a link under this video. Make sure you can buy it directly. When authors do things directly, it cuts out the middleman. There's no need for Amazon and a Barnes & Noble to get something in the middle. So we will be putting that link once we get it from Ted down below. The book is entitled, Here's Why You Can't Find Love. I counsel married couples for 30 years, and I still had something to learn from this book. If you are a man, or especially if you are a woman, I would suggest you buy this book. It's been excellent having you with us, Ted. We'll see you guys again next week.
Hey, thanks. It was an honor, man. Thank you for having me on your show.
Thank you, Ted.
All right. Goodbye.
Okay.